Calling the Township of Lower Makefield Zoning Hearing Board meeting for December 3rd, 2024 to order. We have 5 members today, well, 4 members and an alternate. So if those of you that were here last week when we started with 4, so we're good to go. I don't think there's anything else to be brought up right now. So first up is Appeal Z 24-23. Adam, can you please read in the exhibits, and then we'll swear in the...
Sure. We have, for the RUSK petition, we have the application as A1, site plans as A2, the impervious surface breakdown calculation, as well as the stormwater management, small project volume control collectively as A3. We have the revised plans as A4. Those are dated November 7th. And then the second revised plans, which I think has the updated calculations, also dated November 7th, is going to be A5, B1, proof of publication, B2, proof of posting, and B3, notice to the neighbors.
Okay, can you state your name and get sworn in?
Yeah, my name is Ronald Rusk, R-U-S-K. I'm the property owner.
Sir, I'm going to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead and explain what it is you're looking to do, and Dan here can pull stuff up on the screen.
Sure. Again, my name is Ronald Rusk. I own the property at 904 GAINSWAY. If we could, I'd like to start with the aerial that I sent over as an exhibit. Show the existing conditions.
1 second, let me just pull it up.
Also, this evening, my son is in attendance. Obviously, I'm not, and our engineer architect, Mr. Richard Walker, is also in attendance, or should be in attendance, to help answer any dimensional questions as to the plans that he drew up. Let me start, well, while I'm waiting for...
It was just signaled that he isn't here, your architect.
Okay. Let me start by apologizing.
Yeah, I guess this is a good question here. Do you want to wait to see if he's going to show up? We can switch the order tonight if you want to do that.
I think he'll be here very shortly. I don't really, I think I can handle 99.9% of the questions because I've been over this so time in my back.
Okay, you just froze.
In development and building, it's going to be a question that it should, hopefully there won't be a question that should come up. Again, I'd like to start by apologizing. No, that's not it. I sent an aerial to Dan that shows the existing conditions. There we go.
Yeah, this is, in my opinion, a little clearer than the one you sent me, so.
Okay, if you could blow that up maybe just a little bit more.
That's the furthest it zooms in.
Okay, well, I don't know, can you see my mouse maybe?
No.
No, okay. So let me describe what you're looking at here. First of all, our house sits on the corner. And just to the left of the main house, you'll see our driveway, which is an expanded driveway there where he's pointing out there to the left. Obviously, as we move behind the house, you'll see our swimming pool with the apron around the swimming pool. Just off to the left of that, you'll see a shed. All of that shed and the expanded parking lot were all approved via variance from the zoning hearing board in 2003. So everything that you're looking at presently on this plan was approved by the zoning board for a 24.22% impervious. Now, the one thing, we purchased this house a few years ago, the one thing we discovered in this process was the previous owners had added a bunch of stone pavers which you'll see in the grass areas surrounding the swimming pool. Those pavers are not approved. They are equal to 576 square feet, and we are in the process of removing those pavers because they were never approved by the zoning hearing board, and which would take us over our 24.22%. To further kind of acclimate you, because I think it's important, because one of the reasons for our postponements is that I was never satisfied with our stormwater, how we were doing our stormwater, and I was also never totally comfortable that we had all our calculations down to be within, a percent of where we need to be. And I do believe that the plan is like 99.9% accurate right now. I would point out then, as you look to the rear behind our shed, we have two neighbors. The neighbor to the shed, right there where that area he's pointing out there, that's Mr. Montgomery. He has reviewed with my son our proposals. I will admit he has not seen this latest plan. However, this latest plan is probably 40% better as far as stormwater runoff than the last plan he reviewed. And he is very supportive and very comfortable. Off to the to the right of our house, you'll see Mr. Horowitz's house. He's another one of our neighbors. We have not been able to really connect with him. I do believe he has a couple concerns about stormwater. I'm certainly, if he calls in tonight or shows up at the meeting, I would like to hear what they are. But our review of the topo for this site and eyeing it up, I don't believe any of our water actually flows onto his property. If you look the back right-hand corner, where the fence line is there, where the property line is, the fence line, where you see his shed there right on the property line, all the way to back, there you go. All that, the whole area there drains back towards Mr. Montgomery's property. So I'm not sure, if he calls in, I'd like to listen to him, but I don't see how any of our water could actually be getting onto his property. So we can address that when it comes up. I guess at this point then, if we moved over to the plan and we can talk about the plan or the addition that we're planning. Well, go ahead, that's fine. Move over to the plan now.
All right, pulling the plan up.
Okay. Again, short of the addition, everything on this plan has been approved by the zoning hearing board. As far as what you're looking at here, all the apron, the shed, the expanded driveway, other than what you saw in the aerials, which were the pavers that have been placed in the grass, which we are removing those even before we start construction. We'll have those all out of there. Now what we're proposing and asking for tonight, again, is increases in pervious surface from the 24.22% we presently have approved, and we're proposing with this plan to go up to 27.35%. Now, what are we going to do about the stormwater, which again was my primary concern when doing this, is to make sure that we can take care of all the stormwater. What this plan shows is two dry wells, one towards the back right corner there, in the lower area, and that might end up being moved maybe a little bit more back into the right, but certainly with the township's supervision, we'll put that pit, which is called out on the plan, what the pit is, how big it is, and so on and so forth. There's another pit that we're proposing up in the front of the addition by the driveway, just off to the left of the addition. There you go, there. Those two pits will handle, going forward, all of the stormwater runoff coming off the driveway, which is pitched right now where all the water runs in that direction. We will collect all the water at the edge of the driveway, put it into that pit. We will collect all the roof water coming off the addition and put it either into that pit or the pit in the back. So at the end of the day, our effective runoff after we're done will be down to 18.9%, which is a little under 5% under what the zoning hearing board approved in 2003. We believe that we've mitigated all of our stormwater and actually brought it back under to where it is presently. But by dealing with the runoff, we believe we've mitigated any possible concerns that the township could have as far as stormwater runoff, which I know is a big concern to the township and obviously is a concern as a homeowner. I don't want stormwater runoff on my property, but it else's. I think that's everything I would have to say at this point. Again, we're looking for the addition. We're going to mitigate, 200% of the stormwater runoff. We're basically adding, at the end of the day, we're taking away, almost 2,100 square feet of impervious by putting it into these dry pits. Certainly, I open up if there's any questions or anything I missed, and I don't know whether Mr. Walker showed up yet or not, but I don't think we have a lot of dimensional questions here, and certainly the pits and how they would work and are subject to final calculations and approval by the township, but we believe we're, pretty close to what we need to do.
Thank you for explaining the topography, since that wasn't on the plan. That was going to be a relatively early set of questions here. We'll see if the other board members have questions. James?
So, Dan, first of all, have you checked the calculations for the stormwater management? Does it mitigate back to an effective 18.9%?
It does. I just verified that this afternoon around 2.
Is that at exactly 18.9 or?
So, yeah, because 330 cubic feet, 19.5.
So, my next question is,
Yeah.
so I understand that you were approved for, looks like 24.22%, I guess, back in, was it 2003? Was that when?
2003, yes, the zoning
Yeah.
hearing board approval. And
So-
there's actually an approval in the 70s for something else from the zoning hearing board, but I can't figure out what that was for.
So at that time, when it was approved for 24.22%, that would have been what its proposed was, and then, which is now existing, although it's actually a little less existing, right? It's 23.42. But what I'm curious about is, what was your effective back in 2003? Was it the 24.22, or did you install some form of stormwater mitigation to mitigate back to 18%?
Well, obviously, we didn't own the house then.
Okay, so that's a great answer, because you definitely don't know. Dan, do we have anything in our file?
The approval, and best we can tell, and obviously, we don't find any water mitigation back in 2003. There was nothing on the plan that was approved, nothing in the notes, and certainly doesn't appear that any was required.
So Dan, I was asking you, there's nothing in the township file
Yeah,
about stormwater management?
It's just an Excel sheet that talks about the variance, but I couldn't find information about the stormwater, what they brought it back to. And I'm assuming the board might not have, it might not have been a requirement to bring it back.
Yeah, I mean,
to-
back in 2003, stormwater really
Right.
wasn't the
Right. For the-
talking point that it's been for the last 15 years. Right now, that's the only questions I had.
Masood or James, any questions?
You
Sorry.
had mentioned that your
Mike.
neighbor,
Yeah. Huh?
you guys hear me?
Go ahead.
So Ron, you had mentioned that your neighbor had approved, and it sounded like in the rear, but the other neighbor you just haven't gotten in touch with. Is there any way to check if he's on the call?
He's actually in the room.
Oh, okay, all right. So I imagine we'll hear from him.
Now, we told him he's not allowed, but
We'll get the public comment once we're done with our questions.
That's really what I was interested to hear about, but otherwise I think it's pretty straightforward.
So Mr. Rusk, I do have one question for you, and then I believe it's, unless other stuff comes up. So it's great that you're mitigating back to 18.9. You're so close. I mean, would you be okay if we required you to mitigate all the way back to 18%?
Are you kidding me? What? No. No, listen.
That was a good delivery.
Absolutely, we would go back to the 18%. That's not an issue. In fact, I'll be very honest with you. I've redone did this plan so many times to get it right. And if we'd have had a little more, if I'd have postponed again, I would have got to 18%. It wasn't until we realized that it wasn't 18%, we ended up with the 18.9, but no, I will absolutely accept the 18%. And
Yeah, and then if you could put
certainly,
the,
again, if there's any other mitigation that feels appropriate, we're open to listen to that.
great, thank you. If you could put the dimensions on there as well, that would be great, because I think it just talks about the control volume on the plan. So if you could put the dimensions on there, that would be great.
Mr. Rust, one more question though. The paver situation, do you know when those will be removed?
Best I can get them off of there. I mean, we'll get them done in the next week or two. You can see them on the aerial. They're not on the plan, but you can see them on the aerial. They're 18-inch, they're 18-inch square pavers that are in the grass area. If you look at the aerial, you can see them on there. We can get them out in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking if we choose, if an approval is granted, we could always make that a condition of the variance.
And they're not on the plan. They're not being shown on the plan, so I'm not anticipating that they would be there.
I know it isn't shown on here, but a typical concern that we do hear about is from neighbors on adding additions in that is, what sort of structure or view is it? Is this just a single-story addition, or?
Single-story addition, it would be basically a room, looking well into the future. Basically, I go back and forth with my wife and I go back and forth from Florida. As we get older, or one of us maybe isn't around anymore, we probably would move in with my son, and then they would have more room in a more separate part of the house. But it'll just be a one-story addition. It'll have a fireplace and possibly be more like maybe a game room, or even it'll open up onto the pool, so it'll be used in conjunction with the swimming pool in the summertime.
Dan, is this the aerial that was submitted?
Yes, this was he sent this to me around 6 p.m., so.
All right, so we'll just mark that as A6, which is the aerial.
Yep.
Okay.
One other question about existing conditions. I see that you have an existing deck noted on here. Is that over impervious or pervious, and how is that in your calculations?
That was part of the variance that was granted. That is part of the impervious calculations.
Is it impervious?
It is impervious, yes.
Okay. Thank you. That was two questions there. Yep. All right, that's all I had. Anything else from anybody else on the board?
I mean, Adam, I have a question for you. So we've had multiple plans submitted, and I'm looking at the appeal, and there's language in the appeal that no longer corresponds with the actual plan submitted that we're basing our decision on. How does that affect us when we go to render a decision? And do you need me to give you an example?
Are you saying like the relief?
It was decreased.
It's
So-
decreased.
Yeah, I'm aware of that,
As long as it's the same provision. and
which
if
it
it's-
is.
And it's lesser relief.
Okay.
That's fine. If you were going up or needed an additional variance.
Then we would need to
have
re-advertise, right? Okay.
Yeah, so we would edit it to the 27.35%. Correct. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was advertised for 32 or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Public comment? Come up and you can either sit down and use a microphone or stand at the podium and use a microphone. Make sure it's on though, and stay near it so it picks you up so everybody can hear you.
Just
All right,
state your
test.
name and your address. You'll be sworn in and then
Okay.
can speak.
All right, my name is Dr. Steve Horowitz, Horowitz. I am the owner occupant of 900 Gainsway, which is the adjoining property to the right.
You can take that microphone with you if you approach the,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I'm going to swear you in, sir. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
It is.
Thanks, sir. State your name again.
Dr. Steve Horowitz.
Thanks, sir.
All right. And I'll be honest with you, I met John and his wife Abby and the kids. I did not know, and this is my first understanding, that Mr. Rusk Sr. owns the property or is a part owner of the property. He has never approached me. This is total news to me as far as him wanting to make the variance. Regardless, I wanted to rest assured, hearing that you want to bring it back to 18%, great. I've owned the property next door since 1999. The remnants of Hurricane Floyd hit that fall, and water came off the property because it's what you don't see in the plan is any, what's the right term? Let me think.
Elevations?
No elevations, exactly. And so it's hard to see unless you're there, okay? Water does run from the rear of the property. Let me approach the screen, okay? So what happens is, on mine, because I have the original plans, I know the history, I've known all 4 owners of this property, but as far as my property, it slants back. There is a natural swale that runs from the rear of these properties down across Mr. Montgomery's property, Mr. Heinish's property. This is a 3¼ acre lot. And it runs and feeds Lake Silver, which is at the end of the development. So when Floyd hit, we took on a lot of water. And over the years, from time to time, poor pool management has resulted in water being pumped into the yard and winding up either in Mr. Montgomery's yard or into my yard. I have spoken with Mr. Montgomery and Mr. Heinisch as well, because our #1 concern when we heard about the variance was, well, there were 2 things, but #1 was the stormwater management. How would we handle the water? So I actually tonight, after seeing the current plan that you just received and hearing that it's going to 18%, I'm like, okay, this is good news. I like this. Couple of things to shed a little history. The 2003 variance came about when the Krupreviches, who lived on, they were the second owners, they added this shed. And to get the approval for the shed, they also wanted to add some more patio, but they were denied that because back then we didn't dig trenches or dry wells or anything like that. So they were denied that, but that was the 2003. I was actually surprised just yesterday to see this Google picture myself because I've not stepped into the rear of the property since 2008 when the Kupreviches sold it. And all of these pavers, including this fire pit area, I was not even aware of it. None of that existed at all. There had existed back in '99 a row of swamp maples that were probably planted as a result of the original pool to sort of mitigate any water that accumulated to the rear of the property. But the elevation, the property, the rear of this area drops off from my property at the line to the, let's say this paver area, is not a very far distance, but it rises of like 3 feet. So I have this concern, just to be sure, that, you know, some guarantee that the homeowners or the residents thereof don't come back and add more impervious surface. Swimming pools, I know, are not considered impervious, even though 6 months of the year, they're covered, and the water sheds like it does on concrete. So I don't know the craziness of that, but that's the rules. But, so I like the idea of the pit. They're located in an area that should not affect, I don't know the capacity, though, if the one in the rear, you know, I don't know how these things work. Like, what happens when they overflow?
So what they are is they're designed for a certain amount of volume based on a design rainstorm. So they're water that would run off, in this case, a few hundred cubic feet of water that would run off would be intercepted first in these pits. So a real heavy rainstorm, water's still going to run off, but that would be the case without the pits too, because the ground would get saturated around here. You
Right.
still have the
and That's what
runoff.
we've experienced over the years.
So this is a better situation for you,
Oh,
obvious.
yes, I agree. I've
So-
been looking at the other plans that were submitted, and I was like, wait a minute, this is going to impact this way or that way. I was here on, just before the holiday weekend, speaking with the township engineer about it, because I know this property inside and out. I truly do. We were very good friends with several of the owners, and so we were aware of what's inside as well as what was on the property. So I think 2003, that variance was granted so that they could build this shed. And then they asked for additional pool area, and they were denied. And then that same owner changed the fencing, because I guess the rules about swimming pools, they changed the fencing on that to accommodate a dog. And then, of course, I've spoken with John about the fact that there's a fence that was built when my property was surveyed by an engineering firm back in 2008. They noted that the fence is 2 feet over the line. So I've been kind to each neighbor as they moved in and said, listen, when the fence needs to be replaced, please make sure it's put in the right place. You know, I thought that was fair. But I like the 18%. I think the addition is great. There's plenty of space, I guess, for it. But that's my concern. I just feel bad because I've never met your father. He never, if he's in town or not in town, you know, he never said anything to say, hey, you know, I own the property. You've not mentioned it. So naturally, I was a little stunned about that. But I've been in the house 29 years. My wife works out of the house. We're always there. So we're very approachable, as you know. So I guess we're in favor of the 18%, although the elevation has not been noted on the plan in case it has to be changed. Because where they're talking about building that one pit on the north side, rear yard, again, how would that impact, the elevation in that area? There used to be those swamp maples. So I don't know what's below. That's where.
Dan, why don't you talk to how you would work with the RUSK family in terms of making sure the dry wells were installed in an appropriate area?
Yeah, I mean, we would
I
just
can
make,
make a couple comments.
yeah, go ahead. You might be able to explain it better than I would.
Number one, Mr. Horowitz, I spend most of my time in Florida. I'm seldom in Pennsylvania. So I'm in and out a day at a time. Last time we were in town, I had really hoped to meet up with you, but my wife was hospitalized. We were very sick. And then I had to somehow get her back to Florida so that she could be treated by her doctors, which is also one of the reasons why I'm not there. So, no, you were not aware, but every time I attempted to somehow get in touch with you, I was not able to. That was my fault, nothing on your part. It was just my timing and the fact that I'm not in town very much. And another couple comments. In the wintertime, the pool cover is under the top of the pool. The water goes through the pool cover. It doesn't collect. It goes within the pool, and you know, I'm sure with a hurricane, a pool might overflow, but hurricanes are something called 500 or 1,000-year storms, which only happen every 500 or 1,000 years.
Right.
You know,
We're seeing a lot more of them,
the
though.
the only topo that I have available, plus my own eyes, is the topo that was, you know, back from when the house was early on, and that topo indicates that the water doesn't, unless it, you're telling me the water goes under your shed that's on the property line there next to the fence?
When there's a heavy rain, yes, the water saturates the, let me think, this is the east side of the property, hence why there is a double line. The owner previous to you moved some shrubs, and there is a line of arborvitae that have grown well there, although, and that water, so there is water that sheds to the side. It's not like it's directed to the back because of all this impervious surface. I wasn't aware of the additional. I'm aware of the original cement that was poured around the pool. And as far as the cover of the pool, I mean, you know, I don't know how it works. I just know that we used to have a get-together to put it on every fall and take it off every spring. But I never paid attention to whether, you know, the water actually seeps through it. So yeah, the water does not only shed to the rear, it also sheds to the side. because of the,
It doesn't show that on the plans, and I don't see that with my eyes, but listen, certainly have no problem with meeting with you and the zoning officer, and if we have to kind of change the topo a little bit. You know, Mr. Montgomery, my son has spoken to him, he has no concerns and has no concerns about any stormwater, so I'm not sure what you're speaking to there, but my son can certainly testify that he's 100% of it. And he saw the old plans. He had no addition with the old plans. He
No,
would
no,
certainly
Chris-
testify he was 100% approved.
Okay, I'm going to step in briefly here because I think we're kind of going a little bit, just in general.
Right.
When we typically make these motions, we say subject to the approval of township engineer. Part of that is ensuring that the water, and that's the reason why I sloped questions earlier,
Right.
that it's going to intercept some of the impervious area. It has to intercept some of the impervious area. It's not going to intercept all of it. It's not meant to capture all of it.
Right.
And he's given a design intent that reflects that. If it turns out there needs a little bit more, given that he's looking at connecting rain leaders, the engineer would probably recommend connecting another rain leader or something to that effect
Yeah,
from
so-
the house. It's still taking water that's coming off an impervious area and putting it into the detention system.
Yeah.
Right. No,
Okay,
I agree.
so-
I
so-
like what I hear, that, you know, as long as it doesn't, because, you know, what the rule says about granting a variance, it shouldn't have a negative effect on neighboring properties or its use as such. So I get it. So, yeah, no, for Mr. Rusk Senior, okay. Don't get me wrong. I have no animosity towards the Rusk whatsoever. I'm just more familiar with the property.
Just so you know, in general, it's fine that we give that explanation because there's
Yeah.
people that watch and listen and other appellants.
Right.
And we have to do these explanations a lot, and the more everybody's aware of how the process works,
Will there be
it
a-
helps everybody in their own areas, because there's a lot of water runoff issues in the township
Right.
because of the clay soils. And we
Yeah.
hear a lot about that.
One last question then, I guess, because I've addressed what I wanted to bring up. But the last question is, will the construction plans that the engineers or architectural engineers submit to the township, will they have elevations on them?
So they haven't filed a building permit yet, but when
Okay.
they do, it will get a zoning review, a building review from our third-party inspectors, Barry Isett, and then Jim Majewski, who you spoke to in our
Right.
office, will do the engineering review. And then it'll need to be like a survey that has topography on it, and it will need to show the spot grades and all the elevation, and it'll need to show how it's tied into the dry well and all that.
Okay,
And-
yeah, that's fine.
Additionally, for the construction phase, it'll carry what's called erosion and sediment control details about how during construction they're going to limit runoff.
Right, no, I've seen those.
And then we can show you the plans, if you want to, come
No,
back.
no, it's
come
not
back-
necessary,
Right, right.
as long as it
No,
doesn't
but-
negatively impact.
Yeah,
Because
you're more
they're
than
looking at
welcome.
work that's on the other side of the property, I get that. But the one dry well to the, so Chris Montgomery and I have talked about that, and he said it could be resolved with a dry well. I was like, great. I've even learned recently about impervious asphalt and impervious brick, and there's a lot of, pervious, allowing the
Pervious,
water. These are great, in fact, concrete, so there's a lot of ways to mitigate these things. So if this is brought down to 18%, that's a bonus. It's a bonus for the property owner and for the owners of properties around them. So I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Is there any other public comment in the room? I don't see the light on, so there's no other public comment in line. So back to the board. Any further discussion or on to a motion?
I have no further discussion. All right, I'll make a motion to approve Appeal Z 2423, wherein there is an existing 23.42% impervious surface. Proposed will be 27.35%, and then it will have an effective impervious surface of 18%, so mitigated back to an effective of 18%. The in order to mitigate it back to 18%. There will be 2 dry wells installed, subject to our township engineer's approval. Additionally, I think we should have language in this variance that says the homeowner agrees to remove all those stepping stones / pavers that were installed illegally. That's it.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with the project.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Mr. Horowitz will be in touch.
Next up is Appeal Z24-35. If you can come up and get sworn in, and Mr. Flager here will read in the exhibits.
We have the application as A1, site plans as A2, the fence, or lighted fence photograph as A3, B1, proof of publication, B2, proof of posting, and B3, notice to the neighbors.
State your name. State your name.
Alexander MOSENDZ.
Could you spell your name?
ALEKSANDR. Last name MOSENDZ. A little complicated, I know.
Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Thanks, sir.
I have some pictures for the council, if you guys...
Sure.
I believe they're in your package and they can be put up in the, are those the same as the
Yeah,
ones?
These are different. The one we
Okay.
have is a picture of the fence lit at night. This is just a picture of the house with the fence.
Go ahead.
Is it just one photo?
Yes.
All right, we'll mark this one as
Here you go, Pete.
daytime fence photo as A4.
Thanks.
Is this fence already up?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I have seen that one up. You're right. So go ahead and explain what it is you're looking for here.
Good evening, council. We're looking for a variance of a 6-foot front fence. I know right now the township is only allowing a 3-foot fence. We have several concerns with animals on the property, mainly the double poodle that's about 4 feet high and 80 pounds and likes to play around. So the homeowner has requested a 6-foot fence to go around the property and match the neighbors on the left as well. If you see their white vinyl fencing is 6 foot. The fence is see-through. You're able to see into the property through it as well. It's just basically it's 6 feet instead of 3.
What's the status here with relative to the right-of-way lines that are posted on there? Because that's throwing me a little bit. Dan, is the township, this is an easement for township purposes too, or is that a?
I'm not.
Is that state road right-of-way there?
The 15 feet one are you talking about?
The
Yes,
right-of-way,
correct.
the right-of-way behind the fence.
Yeah, the right-of-way behind the fence. What's the restrictions in that zone? If there's a right-of-way there, what's going on?
I am not sure.
Is that a state right-of-way for the road?
I just, yeah, legal and then alternate right away. I'm not sure.
Do you know what the difference is here in what you're showing?
Yeah. So I'm not sure what they had in mind for the right-of-way.
Hold the mic. You can pull the mic out. Just keep it near you. When you were turning, it was,
Yeah, I'm not sure what, you're talking about the line here, or?
yeah, the ultimate right-of-way there, because it, you know, if there's rights that other agencies have,
Yeah, we I'm not sure what that is because the power lines go at this line and we are fairly back into it.
It's the cutaway.
You-
know when you're at the corner, there's a cutaway.
Excuse me. Yeah, you're going to need to come up and be sworn in. We'll be happy to hear what you have to say.
So, like I said, we match the neighbor on the left-hand side, so that fence goes from our property line all the way to the end of the street and turns into it. As well as the neighbor here, where we ended our fence as well.
Yeah, and both of those fences are permitted, just for context.
Both of which fences, Dan? To the
both-
left and the right?
Yes.
So I had asked this question over the email when we got the information. The fence to the left is a side yard, which has a different ordinance than a front yard.
Yeah, so the max height for a side yard is 6 feet.
Okay, and then you're saying there's a fence to the right that you match up with?
We removed it. It was there originally from the, I guess, whole old homeowners. It was also to this, and we constructed a completely brand-new fence from the end from this end to that end.
But there's no front fence on the neighboring property?
No.
Okay, that was the confusion.
Yeah, I was confused as well. Good job, private investigator.
There actually are two photos here.
Let's see. No, this is-
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
They're more or less the same.
Well,
It's
we
just-
could
it's
still
just
mark
different.
them as A4, just note that there's two photos, one looking towards the property to the right, if you're looking, from the road to the property, and one looking towards the left, where you can see the address 56, and can see the neighboring property and their fence. So we'll collectively mark those as A4.
I think he said he couldn't hear you.
Oh, I was just saying, there's two photos, one looking towards the right, one looking towards the left. The one looking towards the left, you can see the neighbor's property with the fence, which this lines up with, and you can also see the house number, which is 56. So those will be collectively marked as A4.
The plan's dated April 1st, and I see a lot of proposed buildings drawn on here, but they seem to all be built. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think this was one of the plans he submitted. So they have a building permit for, I think everything's shown on the plan besides the fence. So they don't have a permit for the fence, but they did get a permit for the home, the carport, the driveway, the cabana, and all that.
So what happened that no permit was pulled for the fence?
We originally thought it was included within that, in the description. And then Dan and Jim came out to the property and explained to me the variance that would need to be for the zoning, and then obviously apply for the building afterwards.
That was a happy day, huh?
I build a lot of different buildings, so it's common issues I run into all the time.
Well, most problems have resolutions.
Hopefully.
So Adam, are you familiar with how improvements, or legally, can improvements be built inside an ultimate right-of-way? I mean, obviously driveways are, so I'm assuming a fence could as well. Do you know the answer to that question?
I think it's more engineering.
Engineering question?
I mean, this might be informal, but the pin cap, if it's past the pin cap, wouldn't that be a monument for a marker for the property? So if it's past where there's a monument, wouldn't it be technically on the property of?
But they have this separate ultimate right-of-way
okay.
designation line on there.
Right.
So what's the legal right, what legal rights belong to whom within that
Right.
area? So I think it was, Jim made a fair question asking out of,
Yeah, but I mean, with any of these right-of-ways,
Well, without having the document, right, you
No, but-
can't answer it.
but with any of these right-of-ways, yeah, I'm just,
So, if I may, when I originally spoke to the engineer and when we were doing our water calculation and drawing out the property lines, the legal right-of-way is what is enforceable right now. The ultimate right-of-way is if, let's say, they would ever want to expand the roads, or there's an emergency situation where they would have to encroach on that property line, they have the ultimate right-of-way to use that property, and obviously, whatever would need to be used. I mean, right now, that, the legal right-of-way is where that property is, but, you know, if in 50 years, they need to increase it to a 2-lane road on either end, this property and the property adjacent to it, and across from it would have to apply for that.
I just received a message from Jim, the zoning officer. He said it can be within the ultimate right-of-way.
Perfect. Thanks, Jim, for eavesdropping. I mean, I don't ever see that road being expanded anyway, right? I mean, why would Black Rock Road need to be changed
it's
from
a
2
state
to 4
highway. I think
lanes?
that's where that's coming.
Yeah, I mean, but,
And that could be, if we felt like dealing with it, could be dealt with a removal at the cost of the homeowner, but.
right. So, I mean, myself, I love the house. I think it's great. I mean, it's a
Yeah, I
beautiful
appreciate
looking house. I drove by it and literally parked my car, got out and like came and kind of checked it out from the driveway. Yeah,
Thank
really, really sharp house. And
you're the guy they called the cops on? Is that-
I was wearing a dark hoodie that day and a mask.
It was on Facebook.
Yeah,
Anybody know who this guy
yeah.
is?
It was on next door. And I like the fence. I'm curious to see what kind of public comment we have.
Just further context from Jim. He said PennDOT only uses the legal right-of-way. PennDOT would need to condemn the additional right-of-way, which would rarely happen.
Yeah, I dealt with this not too long ago, and they'll basically, you get it surveyed, and then PennDOT pays you for that portion of the property that they're condemning and taking. So, and then if there's improvements, then that's part of the negotiation. But that's why they have it in case they need it. But in this area, I don't know that they would.
And I looked off on Google, there was only a couple instances where that actually happened, and it was at market price. And I think if you guys are familiar with Woodhaven, that got stopped because of the homeowners, because they wanted to further that. But I doubt a small road like this in Yardley would ever need that.
I mean, it sounds like legally you're fine anyway, so it's really not part of the equation.
It's just the fence site.
It's just the fence height.
Yeah, it's just a fence height at this point.
Dan, when did the neighbors get their fence put in? And
So I kind of wrote this down. So 700 Ardsley Court received a variance in 1990 to put in a pool and deck. The permit called for a self-latching, such self-closing fence to meet pool code, as all permits do. Due to it being a corner lot, the fence is on the side of the property and is 6 feet tall, where 7 feet max is allowable in side yards. They filed another permit in 2008 to replace a portion of the fence, and the permit verifies it is 6 feet. So 2008.
And, yeah, we've gone through the side yard issue, like with the neighborhood over here, so. Any other questions from the board? Mike, James?
I wanted to hear from the, if anybody's in the audience.
Okay,
No questions from me.
all right. So go ahead, come up, state your name and be sworn in, and provide your address.
Mary Agnes
Speak, pull the microphone down and speak into it, please.
Mary Agnes Brodowski, 66 Black Rock Road,
Spell your name.
MARY BRODOWSKI. Spanish yours.
Ma'am, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes. So I just have a question. The house is beautiful. So we live in the back, behind you. We have the large piece of property.
You can hold the mic.
Oh,
Please
sorry.
speak the microphone. You could pull it out if you want to, if you want to turn around, but it's,
So we live behind you, large piece of property. My question is more about, I thought the fence could not go past the front of the house. So while we're just talking about the front fence, I thought a fence could not go beyond the front of a house. So this is actually the sides and the front?
the front, that can go in front of the house.
It can,
It's
yeah.
it's 3 foot when it's next to the street, and there's a new calculation. Dan
So
can
I could
explain
bring
it, but
I could bring a 6-foot fence all the way up to my
no,
driveway, the end?
no.
No,
It'd be shorter.
To the side of your house,
So this is
past, so it's in the front.
6 foot all the way around?
Correct, and it's not supposed to be 6 foot in front. That's why
Yeah,
it's
so
So
the-
you're
here.
considering the front from the line of the house all the way out? Is that what
Yes.
we're saying? Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
And then
And
the
that's
s-
3 feet.
Yep, and then the side, all the way in the back, would be permissible because it's the 6 feet. Where,
Yeah.
where 7's the max. Yeah.
So will this set a precedence then to let, are you opening up the floodgates now to let everybody on Black Rock Road
So,
have a 6-foot fence?
No.
And come up for variance for it?
no, so that wouldn't be ideal, and, we conveyed that to the homeowner and the contractor, but anyone who gets would need to get a permit for a fence, it would need to be 3 feet, so, and if someone did do that, it wouldn't look good, because something like this had happened before, but you do need to get a permit for a fence, and it needs to be 3 feet in the front, max feet, 7 feet in the rear and side of your home. So,
Okay.
I mean,
So
I can't speak for,
From here to the end of the road, to the river, there is not a fence in the front of the house. So I'm just saying,
right.
There's actually a low stone wall that's acting like a fence in front of one of the other properties.
it's a low.
But it's still,
stone-
it's still a fence from the
No,
purposes.
it's a low stone wall.
It's still a fence.
But it is not 6 feet.
It's considered.
A
it's
fence.
Considered a fence.
I'm just putting it out there. That's the only, that is my only comment to the zoning board, to think about how that's going to change the look potentially of our town. So, thank you.
It does stand out driving down the street. Is there, I don't see the light on, so I'm assuming there's no public comment online. Would it be possible to replace the louvered section panels of it with something that's lower height, if we were to look at a compromise? I'm just putting that out there. You come back to the mic.
What do you mean exactly by that? So have
Keeping your 6-foot pillars, but cutting the louvers down to 3 foot to address the concern about visual impact.
Again, with the dog being as tall as it is, their concern is if they let the dog roam free into the yard, potentially, God forbid, it jumps over, which it easily can at 3 feet, because it's about yay tall just walking around.
So most people who have dogs, right, they overcome that by cutting the fence short of the front, right? So like where the house would end, that's the fence would anchor into maybe the front corners of each side of the house, and that's how you create a 6 or 7 foot fence in the backyard. And that's where the dog or dogs are contained. It's unusual to have 6-foot fence on the front yard. And the Ms. Burkowski? Brodowski, I'm sorry. I mean, I know this road well. Like I said, I drove by your house. I literally pulled over and looked at it. It's beautiful. I actually love the fence, but there are no fences on this road other than the side yard and the wall that was referenced earlier. This is definitely out of character.
Something unique to the township, you know?
There are other ways to deal with pets. Lots of other people, and I know that I'm just putting it out there, lots of other people put out electric fences. They might have a split rail fence, but an electric fence, you know, the electric below grade line lined up with it. Lots of other residents in the township come up with ways to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, when I did my homework at home, I had no idea that it was already built, right? So I always try to show up at these hearings without preconceived notions, so I was coming in with an open mind, but I was literally in my head saying, why do they need a 6-foot fence when really the reg is a 3-foot fence? That's what code is. So I was thinking about that at home. I was driving here thinking about that. Again, I wasn't even thinking that it's the property I stopped at and saw. For whatever reason, I didn't connect the dots. So, you know, I was already of the mindset that I was going to have to be given a good reason to approve this fence, higher than 3 feet. And of course, you went and built it, so that's a bit of a reason, but yeah, I'm just having a hard time with it.
Are there any pictures? I didn't, like, 'cause looking on it in terms of like Google Maps, since it's already built, do we have any pictures of what it looks like?
In the package, there's the at night, and
Yes.
Yeah, there's the only at night, unfortunately.
but it does show the full height. And that's why I was suggesting maybe a compromise solution was to remove the louvered section so you're not replacing the full structure.
I mean, if we can't get an approval for that, we have to at least do that, yeah.
I mean, do you know factually if the way this fence is fabricated, if that's even doable?
Yes, it is.
It is doable?
So the center pillars connect to a metal rod. It's actually a metal rod and has connectors on the ends for the wood to be replaced eventually, because you know, even though it's pressure treated wood, its lifespan is 15 years.
Is taking those posts, or, you know, the horizontal louvers, posts, whatever we want to call them, is that going to damage the integrity of those pillars, not having them 3 feet up? I mean, that would be a concern of mine.
Right, so the pillars themselves can't really be adjusted. I can adjust between the pillars, I can adjust that.
I know, but I'm saying without having anything the top 3 feet in between each pillar, will the integrity of those pillars be compromised? In other words, I'm assuming because they're tied in from just like a physics standpoint, that those top pillars, the top 50% of pillars, they help stabilize. I mean, of the vertical slats, they help stabilize those pillars. That's what I would think.
I think it's actually the other way around.
The bottom ones.
I think the pillars are holding the louvers in place.
No, I know that, but I'm wondering though, again, if it helps stabilize the pillars up at the top. That's all.
I think in the long run it would, just so it doesn't sway back and forth, but, I mean, for 3 feet, I wouldn't.
So, yeah, back to it again. Keeping the pillars because you've already constructed them, and I'm presuming they're out of block or something similar.
They're solid concrete.
Solid concrete, yes. Keeping the pillars, but removing the louvers, cutting the louvered sections down to 3 feet. So there's less of a sight line impact.
I mean, I can talk to the homeowner if aesthetically with the design for the designer, if that's what they design, they would like for the approval from the council for 6 feet, but if we can't get an approval, I will be able to cut it down to 3 feet.
I mean, you know, that's creative problem solving, but I have an aesthetic concern about that as well, though. I mean, what I'd like to see is a rendering of what it would look like, similar to what you presented tonight, before you actually do the work. I don't want to ask you to do the work. I don't want us to agree that that's the solution, and it actually looks worse than what we have now. By the way, I think it's a beautiful fence. I want to be clear about that, but not everybody wants to see a 6-foot fence along the road. So
We spaced it out. I'm sorry for interrupting.
now, I'm just making a point about aesthetically, that might not be the greatest solution, because really, more than anything, this is, the reason for the code is aesthetics, right? There's no other reason to tell people they can't have a fence higher than 3 feet other than aesthetics. So I just don't know if that is a viable solution.
One thing that that concerns me here too, though, is that I think if we don't make moves to make changes to this to be in line with what's allowed, we're setting a precedent by saying you can do something that's not on the plans, and that we don't want to harm you by making you unwind it. I almost feel like we're incentivizing doing things that aren't approved, and then trying to like ask for forgiveness later, which I think that could be a dangerous.
So you don't want somebody to come in later and say, oops, sorry, and we have to let it go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a tricky balance, right? Because I think Jim's right. Like, you don't want to go in there and like hack that up and be like, wow, this looks worse. But at the same time, I don't think setting the standard that, hey, let's ask for forgiveness rather than permission is something that we allow. I think that's a dangerous.
An option here might be for you to have a continuance and revisit it with your client.
What I could tell you is, I'm definite no vote if we vote on it tonight. So, and I'm hearing probably that from at least one or two other members. A continuance is probably your best case. You don't have to re-advertise. And you guys, you know, you can take this back. You can also get a copy of the minutes from our office, and so you can review that with the homeowner. I think it really makes the most sense. And if you need a recess to call the homeowners, we can give you a few minutes.
Yeah, if that's okay with the council.
Sure. And then just for context, if they do want to continue, the next meeting's January 7th.
Understood.
Just a heads up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we're in recess.
Do you want to call recess?
Yep.
All right. Hide and seek or tag. Bang your gavel, dude.
Per request, we're out of recess. All right, and we've had a couple of other thoughts that might have come up that I related to this, but go ahead and say your thing first.
I spoke to the homeowner. They would like a continuance if possible, but we would absolutely love to hear any comments you guys have.
Pete, Pete, it's your idea, and actually, it's a pretty sound idea. It's not ideal, but it's a pretty sound idea. Go ahead, Pete.
Okay. A suggestion might be, when thinking about the aesthetics, is to cut the pillars down too, get a concrete saw, bolt it on, and cut the pillars down and put some sort of cap on it when you're looking at it as an aesthetic solution. And maybe that's more than 3 feet. I mean, you have a designer for the job, but think about ways to make this look good.
I think it looks great right now, honestly.
I think it looks great. I'm serious, but I can't sit up here and vote that way just because I like it.
I understand.
But again, depending on what you guys decide would dictate what relief, if any, you need.
Yeah.
Right, if you're cutting it to 3 feet,
No more really.
you don't need to come to get a variance.
Or you
If they-
could come back and say, hey, we really would like to do 4 feet and continue the discussion. So,
Yeah, so depending on what your relief is, you may not need to come back, or you may still want to come back, but the relief hopefully will be less than it is now.
Understood.
And to be clear, from the edges of the house out to the side property lines and back can all be 6 feet, but everything from there forward, sides and front, 3 feet, correct?
So yeah, past the house,
Okay.
like the front of the house would have to be
Because it's not
3
just the
feet.
front with the pillars, I'm looking at the 6-foot-high fence on the side yard as well,
well,
which is
I
different
think the new,
materials.
I think the new fence ordinance would impact how that's interpreted, right? It would step up as you move away from the street, correct, Dan?
Even if fence ordinance?
It wasn't the one where for every feet back, you're
Yes.
higher?
So, but that's only for a corner lot.
Oh, only for a
Yeah,
corner
so for a
lot.
corner lot, every
Corner
foot
lot,
above
okay.
3 feet has to be set back 3 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it's a 6-foot fence, it would have to be set back 9 feet.
But that's not applicable
But that's
here.
not applicable, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm still not clear what's going on with the side fence. Is it allowed to be 6 foot right up until right up
edges
until the legal right away?
Of the house, here. If you drew a straight line from the corner over to the side, everything from there back, and that fence could be 6 foot, same thing on this side, but everything around here has to be 3.
That's my understanding.
So you understand that?
That would still
That's
be-
the point that public comment made
I
earlier.
do, but it doesn't make sense, because if I'm at 3 feet, but my neighbor's at 6, then who's in?
That's the impact of corner lots, that's,
And
And
by the
we
way,
do hear about that.
maybe that's something that we can get behind. We don't have a problem with it on that side of the property. Does that make sense? Because there's an existing fence there. Maybe that's, part of the compromise. I don't want to talk for anyone else up here, but you're right, there's an existing fence over there, so.
actually, it was just pointed out that the request should have been for the front fence is more than just what's facing the street. It is from the house forward. So this relief is for that side fence too, till it gets back to in line with the corner of the house.
Understood.
I thought one of our two members wanted to make a comment or had a question. Mike, Jim?
Actually, no, that was probably me, Dan, the Board of Supervisors liaison.
Oh, sorry, Dan. Yeah.
It's all right. I've had residents reach out to me about this particular fence with concerns relative to obviously the height and the lights in combination. I have not been by the house, but I'm just wondering, anecdotally, folks have said it looks taller than 6 feet. I'm wondering if anyone's actually put an as-built measurement on it to make sure that we have the right measurements.
The photo shows it in line with the 6-foot adjacent fence.
Okay,
So at most, it's off a couple inches. It's definitely less than 7.
Yeah.
all right. So
I know.
residential complaints often are exaggerated, so I
Yeah, I know.
understand that.
I know Jim did a site visit to measure the cabana in the back, but I don't know if he did one for the fence.
Okay. And were there any, did Jim look at any particular issues with sightlines? Because that's a big part of the reason for fences being smaller in the front yard, not just aesthetics.
It's a house in the middle of the block, Dan, and it's a straight section of Black Rock Road.
Okay. There's no intersections nearby?
No.
Okay.
All right. And
I'll make a motion to continue Appeal Z 2435 until
January 7th.
January 7th, 2025.
I'll second.
That date is good for you, by the way, January 7th?
For now, yeah. I have no idea.
Yeah, you can,
It's 5 weeks, so you should hopefully be able to pull something together.
No, I mean, in terms of like, hopefully I'll be alive, but yes, other than that, yeah, it works.
okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we'll see you back on January 7th.
Before you leave, do you have any questions?
Just one, when you mentioned earlier that the zoning law in itself is based on a aesthetic.
Well, it's whatever, it's a combination of what township boards of supervisors have passed over the course of decades.
Right.
So there could be a variety of rationales behind it, but it's what those established for the township.
Is there like a list I can get or somewhere,
For like
Dan.
for what it should look like?
the reasoning behind the law or explanation of the law?
I can check sometime tomorrow or sometime this week.
I'll stop by, yeah.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
And can always be in touch with Dan and with Jim Majewski about any logistics in the meantime, as far as going over plans and
I
figuring
see.
stuff out.
We
So,
know each other quite well.
good.
Well, if he sounded like he did everything on the rest of the property correctly. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you, council.
All right, so we have 3 appeals then for January 7th, plus board reorganization.
Correct. Yep, so there's the board reorganization, and then there's this continuance, one more continuance, and then a new one, so 3 total.
So we start with the board reorganization next time. Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Wait.
Wait, looks like we have some more comments here.
We got to cancel December 17th,
Oh, that's true. Yep.
unless you want to have a meeting on
We'll make a
December 17th.
motion to cancel the December 17th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll move on to the motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 The ayes have it.
And there we go.